Secure Financial Advisors, a registered investment advisor. This show does not intend to provide personalized investment advice through this broadcast and does not represent that the securities or services discussed are suitable for any investor. Investors are advised not to rely on any information contained in the broadcast in the process of making a full informed investment decision. This is Your Money, Your Wealth on Talk Radio 760 KFMB. Now, here's Joe Anderson and Big Al Clopine.
It's a little bit after the hour. Good morning, everyone. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. Joe Anderson here. I'm a certified financial planner with Big Al Clopine. He's a CPA. Thanks for tuning in. Next couple of hours, we're going to dedicate this show to retirement accounts, individual retirement accounts, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, TSPs.
Wow. I thought you'd normally dedicate to a person. You're
No.
dedicating to retirement accounts.
Yes.
Okay.
Every person that holds one.
Oh. Wow. Okay. Well, that's big.
It's huge.
That means you and me and you guys out there.
Millions.
Yeah.
Millions and millions. Because what we are finding more and more are some mistakes that you're continuing to make with the overall accounts. There's a lot of rules and regulations when it comes to your overall retirement accounts, and I think a lot of times people are unaware of those rules. There's also new laws on the docket, too, that will definitely affect some of those accounts, so we want to get through some of those new changes potentially. We'll see what happens. They've been on the budget now for the last few years.
Yeah, and we're referring to some proposals.
Proposals,
in the
yeah.
Obama budget that they haven't passed yet, but you can sort of tell where the party's going.
Yeah, and speaking of the president, did you watch that debate on Thursday there, buddy?
No, I've lost interest in debates.
Oh, my God.
I was in the gym on Monday, and they got TVs now on your cardio things, and so it happened to be on Fox, and it was Megyn Kelly's show, and so she was talking all about Trump and all kinds of stuff, and it was pretty interesting. But no, I didn't see it. Did you?
Yeah, I watched a little. I was in the office late on Thursday.
Yeah.
And so I had it on. It's hard to watch. It is. It's hard to watch.
I mean, I get the key quotes of the day in my news the next morning.
Yeah, and those key quotes that you get, they're really going to help the economy.
There's like nothing. There's no substance whatsoever.
I mean, all it is rips.
Yeah.
And
right.
insults.
Right.
It's. I don't know. I guess this is where we've gone to.
Apparently.
So anyway, what was I going to say? I got a lot of things on my mind right now, and I'm not sure where to flush it out at.
Just pick one.
Just pick one, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Whatever.
Well, I mean, the markets have recovered a little bit anyway.
Yeah.
We're seeing some still crazy volatility in the overall markets.
Yeah, pretty good week though.
Yeah, it's coming around a little bit.
I looked at my
January was
retirement
awful.
accounts. They're back to where they were, and then some.
Well, that's because you're one heck of an investor, Al. I mean, so yeah, we're back over 17,000.
Yes.
That's a pretty good milestone.
Yeah, it is.
And I still listen to this radio show just to see when he's going to change his mind, because all the predictors out there.
Yeah.
12.5. The Dow's going to go to 12,500.
Okay.
It's going to go down to 10,000. This is when the market, in January.
Yeah, when it's going down.
And then now it's kind of gone back up a little bit. I wonder if because when you look at the market timing, sounds really good in very volatile markets. Hey, you got to get out, because you're going to lose 40% of your assets, and it's going to take you forever to get back. And how they talk, it's like, okay, well that's assuming that you, first of all, have 100% stock portfolio.
Right.
And 100% of that stock portfolio is in U.S. companies, because they keep going back to 08, and they're referring to the Dow Jones or the S&P 500.
Sure.
Right? So U.S. large companies. But as you and I know, Al, over some of those time periods, 2008 was really bad.
Yeah.
But if you had a globally diversified portfolio with some treasuries, some bonds, some, right?
Yeah, international.
International bonds, then you have some international stocks, small companies, large companies, value, growth. commodities, real estate.
Yeah.
They didn't come close to feeling the effects of dropping 50%.
Yeah. In fact, you kind of look at that decade, 2000 to 2010, emerging markets. I mean, that went up over 200%. You just had a little bit of that in your portfolio. And, of course, that's a volatile asset class, but it did really well. And you look back 10 years when everyone else is saying it was the last decade, and you made 6 or 7% just by having a globally diversified portfolio.
You've heard of confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias.
Have you ever heard of that?
I don't know what that means.
Well, let's talk about it because it's interesting. Everyone has it.
Okay.
And it especially comes out when you are investing.
Okay,
right?
because you want to confirm with your belief, and
you got it.
You follow the herd type of thing.
Yeah, or let's say that you get out of the market, okay, and then so when you get out of the market, right, you're going to look for doom and gloom type information.
Sure, to say, you know what, I did the right thing.
To confirm that
it.
you get out of the market appropriately.
We all do that.
Right?
Yeah. Or if we buy something, we look at all the reasons why it was a good idea to buy.
Right, and then you neglected to look at the other side of the story.
Yeah.
And, since, we're knee deep into political rhetoric right now, so if you are a conservative Republican or a liberal Democrat, you tend, if you're going to talk politics, you probably, if I'm a liberal Democrat, I'm not going to jump into a conservative conversation probably, right? Because that would probably tend to arguments and frustration and everything else.
Right.
So you tend to watch certain TV shows, read certain magazines and things like that.
Right.
So just
I
to
agree with
confirm
all
your
that.
beliefs.
Sure.
Everyone has that, right? I do it, you do it, and all of
Yeah.
our listeners do it.
Of course.
And when it comes to investing, it's you got to, because when the markets were volatile, right, and then it felt good to get out, and then if I'm sitting on the sidelines and if I see the market turn and it goes up, right, so I'm still thinking that it's going to go down, so I'm going to continue to look for bad news, right, and not necessarily look at all the good news that's out there.
Yeah, this is just kind of a blip. It's just
Or on the flip side, when the markets are doing very, very well, right?
Yeah.
Then we get complacency,
Right.
and then you're ignoring some of the bad news that's going to happen with the overall markets. But you're thinking, hey, well, over the last 3, 4, 5 years, I've made pretty good money with this particular investment.
Yeah.
It's going to go down a little bit. Sure, I understand that, but I'm in a really good investment that it's going to continue to go up. So either side of the coin here is that we have this confirmation bias. And when it comes to investing, you have to be very careful with that. Because let's say if you had $1 million and that $1 million grew to $4 million, all right? I don't think that's going to affect a lot of our listeners' life that much, right? You might buy a little bit nicer home. Maybe you go on a couple more vacations and things like that, right? So there's the greed and fear that goes along with this whole confirmation bias, right?
Sure.
So if I got $1 million, $2 million, and I double that over a time period, it's not like, all right, boom, I started from zero, now I got $100 million, like I won the lottery, and lose that money in another few short years.
Yeah.
But people that are responsible, that have saved money. But on the flip side, if you say, all right, that $1 million grows to $2 million or $3 million, yes, it's going to affect your life, but it's going to affect it in most cases in a modest way. But if that $1 million goes to $100,000, now that's truly going to affect your life in a totally different manner, right?
Yeah, that's a game changer.
And so when you make decisions based on emotion when it comes to your investments, you have to be extremely careful to say, all right, well, is this decision going to be right? Have I ever been wrong before? And if I'm wrong making this decision, either by getting into the market or getting out of the market, what is the worst outcome that could happen? Right? You can't necessarily say, all right, well, if I do this, I think it's going to go up 1,000%, right? Because the opposite could happen when you're taking that much risk.
Sure.
I guess, coming full circle is that it's funny how the markets move. I'm not saying that the markets are going to continue to go up. I don't know that. We might hit Dow 10,000. But you have to anticipate that is going to happen, and it shouldn't be a surprise. Or the markets could go to 20,000, and you should anticipate that too, and that shouldn't be a surprise. That's why you want to have a little bit of money in all different areas and have the right allocation for your overall position in life, whatever your goals are. Control the things that you can control. And taxes is one of the largest things that you can control. And so when you're looking at your investment allocation, getting in and out, right? And I'm using that terminology again, Al. Sorry about that.
As long as you don't say men get in and out.
Yeah, right.
That's what caught my attention when you said that last week.
What I want people to consider is to say, all right, well, here, control the things you can control, such as risk, such as taxes, such as fees, and then you can control the decisions. All right, we got to take a break. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. We'll be back in just a second.
This is Your Money, Your Wealth on Talk Radio 760 KFMB.
Welcome back to the show. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. My name's Joey Anderson. I'm a certified financial planner with Big Al Clopine. He's a CPA. Thanks for tuning in today. Do you have an IRA? Do you know how or where your money's invested in this critical retirement account? When is the last time you updated these investments? And how will you withdraw money from your IRA and avoid thousands in taxes, penalties, and fees? If you're like most, your IRA probably makes up a big chunk of your retirement savings, but here's the problem. Your IRA is virtually being ignored. Sure, you sink money into it every year, and that's great, but you haven't given any thoughts to your investments or how these investments work with your overall retirement game plan. Plus, there's no strategy on how you'll actually get your money out of the plan. That means you could be setting yourself up to make a huge mistake. According to a recent article on Forbes magazine, paying a stupid penalty here or not taking advantage of a loophole there could cost you thousands. I quote, Al.
You do.
An IRA can be a tremendous vehicle to save for retirement, but it's really easy to make a number of mistakes. And any one of these mistakes could cost you dearly. Are you about to make the biggest mistake with your IRA that could cost you thousands? Well, what we want to get into right now is looking at some mistakes that people are currently making with their retirement accounts, right, and some steps on how to avoid them. Because you could save and save and save and have the absolute perfect portfolio, Clopine. Let's say the perfect portfolio.
Yeah, I'm on it.
Right?
Yep.
And it's right there in your retirement account. But one mistake could cost all that hard work of constructing the absolute perfect portfolio. It means nothing because of everything is going to unnecessary taxes, penalties, and fees, and so on.
Right.
So that's why these accounts are so careful. It doesn't matter how you invest. Just if you could be in just an average Joe, right? Pick a couple of funds, let it go, and if you know the tax laws, you'll probably be 90% better than most because they're not understanding how the tax consequences coming out of these accounts.
Yeah, that is true, Joe. And there are so many ways to get tripped up. All the way, I mean, some of these I think we know. Like we're not supposed to touch our retirement accounts until 59 and a half. And if we do, if we take money out of our IRA or 401k before those ages, there's a 10% penalty. Now, there's a few exceptions, but in general, there's a 10% penalty. And then it's like, well, so I can't take it before 59 and a half, but I have to take it at 70 and a half. So I got this little zone here, right, where it's optional. Then I have to take it. Well, why do you have to take it at 70 and a half? Well, guess what? The government wants you to pay taxes on those dollars. So they make you take it. Now it's not a 10% penalty anymore. It's a 50% penalty. If you forget to take that required minimum distribution, it's a 50% penalty. And what happens when you inherit an IRA and you forget to take a distribution? Now, there's different rules for spouses versus non-spouses, but if you're a non-spouse beneficiary, like a kid, grandkid, or maybe it was your uncle, whatever, so you have to start taking required minimum distributions.
As long as it's titled correctly, because half the time it's not even titled correctly.
True.
Because, right, then the whole thing is distributed out and it's 100% taxable. The whole balance is.
Yeah, exactly. And that's even worse, right? Because now it's like I was making $100,000 or whatever I was making. Now I got this IRA that's $600,000 and I got a full distribution. Now it looks like I make $700,000. I'm in the highest tax bracket, and I just lost half of my 401k, or my inherited 401k, or inherited IRA.
Right, or you don't understand how to make transfers. This happened recently, where an individual inherited $400,000 in a Roth IRA. So dad put a bunch of money into a Roth, did some conversions. He passed away, gave it to his son. All right, now I'm the sole beneficiary. The money's sitting in an insurance company. He goes, well, I don't like that insurance company. I want to move it to my brokerage account. Calls the insurance company, says, hey, I'd like to take this money out. So they send him a check for $400,000. All tax-free, mind you.
Sure.
But now guess what? It's outside of the Roth IRA. So every last dollar now that $400,000 grows is going to be taxed. if he did a simple transfer, right, from that custodian into another inherited IRA at his brokerage account, he could have kept it in a Roth IRA. He would have been the beneficial owner. So all future earnings on that $400,000 could have parlayed into several more $100,000, right, depending on how he's investing that money. And it all would have been tax-free forever. It would have never been taxed. Every last penny of that account would have been tax-free to him. But simple mistakes like this cost people thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars of unnecessary taxes.
They do, Joe. And so in this example, let's just say he was 40 years old. So he takes all the money out, and now it was tax-free to him because it was in a Roth IRA. So that's the good news. The bad news is, though, all future growth when he sells those stocks or investments, interest income, dividends, it's all taxable. If it was inside the Roth, it would all be tax-free. So if he's 40, and let's say he lives till 80, 85, that's 40, 45 years where all of that growth and income could have been tax-free. Now, he paid a lot more taxes. We're not just talking a couple $1,000. I mean, depending upon the size of the IRA, in this case, $400,000, I bet you the extra taxes that he'll pay over his lifetime for that mistake is definitely in the hundreds of thousands of dollars of range. Because you think about investments, I mean, just a simple rule of thumb, if you got $400,000 at 40 and it's invested in for a 7% rate of return, it'll double by age 50, and it'll double again by age 60, double again by age 70, and so on. So 400,000 becomes 800,000, 800,000 becomes 1.6 million, then 3.2 million. All of that income growth could have been tax-free. That is such a big mistake.
Huge. I mean, but it's like, oh, well, how much does that really mean? Well, no, you don't want to know what that really meant to you. because
you would just, you'd start crying and you'd never get over it.
Right.
Because Joe, really, I mean, I've been a CPA for 30 years now, and it amazes me how many people fail to get the message about tax planning until they make a mistake that costs them thousands of dollars that otherwise could have been avoided. And then they finally get it, but it's too late. The secret is to make sure you don't have to learn the lesson the hard way.
All right, when we get back, we got a lot more common IRA mistakes that are costing you thousands of dollars, so don't go anywhere. Show's called Your Money or Wealth.
Now back to Your Money, Your Wealth on Talk Radio 760 KFMB.
Welcome back to the program. Show's called Your Money or Wealth. My name's Joe Anderson. I'm a certified financial planner. I'm with Big Al Clopine. He's a CPA. Thanks for tuning in. Talking about IRA, individual retirement account mistakes that are costing you a couple of bucks. And simple things that you can do to avoid that. First of all, you got to understand how the tax code works, and that's not an easy proposition, unless Ted Cruz gets into office, right? Because then you can do your taxes on a postcard.
It'll be much simpler, right? 10% flat tax.
Yeah, there you go.
I saw his suggested tax return. It is one page. It's a half a page, actually.
Postcard.
But I will say this. One of the line items says, put down your salary and other income. Well, how do you know what that is? Aren't you going to have another page to figure that out? And then you get to that page. You have a business. What's your income? Is it just your gross income? Oh, I guess you get to take your deductions. Oh, we need another page for that. And you sell your property. Whatever you sell it for, you pay tax on, right? No. I mean, if you bought it for $500,000.
No, you just do that on a scratch piece of paper, Al. And then you put your net on there.
But you got to have rules, right? In other words, you sell your home for $500,000, but you bought it for $600,000. So you lost money on it. You have to pay taxes on $500,000? No, of course not, because you lost money.
So as a CPA, are you saying that you don't want a flat tax because then that would hurt the CPA's community of doing tax returns?
Actually, no. I'm sick of preparing tax returns. I think that'd be great. But here's what I'm saying.
He's disgruntled.
I'm disgruntled tax preparer. I've done that for long enough. Actually,
yeah, give me a flat tax. I hate this crap.
I actually had a phone call, and I was driving to work on Friday. Someone from North County, San Diego. I got your name from this person, and I want to get some help preparing my tax return this year. I said, well, that's nice, but I don't do those anymore. No, I don't. Here's the thing. I guess here's my point, Joe. You could infer that, I suppose. My point is this. The tax code, I mean, you can make it simple, flat tax, but you also have to have definitions of income and expenses, gains and losses, and that is very complicated, right? It's hard to make this stuff simple.
Right.
Is what I'm saying.
Yes. The Tax Simplification Act. That worked out pretty well.
Yeah, that was, for those of you that remember, that was Ronald Reagan, 1986, the Tax Simplification Act, which, in my view, in my opinion, made the tax code much, much more complicated than it was ever before because the passive loss rules were introduced. Now, I would say this. It actually worked pretty well in terms of discouraging a whole bunch of abusive tax shelters that were going on back then. Remember, you were just a kid, but the windmills, people were investing $100,000 in windmills investments, and all of a sudden they would have a write-off of $300,000, and at their tax rate, they made money. They saved $150,000 in taxes by investing $100,000. I mean, who wouldn't do that?
Right.
So these rules did stop that. They were very complicated because, and this is important, they were complicated because investments are complicated, and they had to be complicated to keep up with the investments. So I love the idea of being simple. I just don't know how you do it. And then there's the further fact, Joe, which is this. When you have a flat tax, all of a sudden everyone's paying the same rate. Right now, we've got the wealthy paying a much higher rate. In fact, the lowest rate's 10%, the highest rate's about 40%. So the wealthy are paying 4 times more. If it's a 10% flat tax across the board, we're all paying the same thing. So it's like, okay, I guess then there's a lot less money coming into the government. And some people would say, well, that's a good thing. Let's cut the expenses. But gosh, you still got commitments for Social Security and Medicare. You still want to have a military. As far as I know, you still need some roads and things like that. There's some stuff that we need to keep up. Now, everyone would agree there's too much fat in the spending, and I would say that too. But to be able to cut that dramatically, that would be pretty significant.
Yeah, I think the long story short of this is that we believe that tax rates can really, or the amount of money that we pay in tax has to go up.
Yeah.
I would love for it to go down.
Yeah, wouldn't that be cool?
That would be
10% flat tax.
I would love that.
I mean, it would be cool. I mean, if there'd be a lot of incentive, and now I'll get the supply side economics going. Yeah, Clopine's finally on our side. It's like, yeah, because that will spur the economy. Because now, if you're only paying 10% tax, you're going to do everything you can to grow a company and be profitable. And there's a lot of truth in that. But the flip side of that is, to make this work, you do have to cut spending, and that's what Reagan tried. And even he, who was the master at getting both sides to talk to each other, had a really hard time with that.
So it's looking at, well, what can you do now? All right. So there's good and bad things when it comes to retirement. Is that if you have assets, right, and if you have a lot of assets, that's a really good thing. The bad thing with that is that most of the largest assets that we see that people accumulate for retirement are in retirement accounts. And when you pull dollars out of those retirement accounts, they are taxed at ordinary income. It is taxed exactly like your paycheck without the FICA tax. So you have to pay federal income tax, depending on how much that you pull out, of course, is what's going to be your tax bracket. And I still get this argument. I teach every single night of the week when it comes to retirement planning, taxes, investments, and everything else. And it's like, Joe, my income is going to be substantially lower in retirement. And just 15 minutes before that individual said that statement, I asked a question to say, how many of you want to duplicate or replicate your paycheck when you're in retirement? Every hand goes up in the room. Absolutely. I want to replicate my paycheck, or actually I might want to even spend more money in the first few years of retirement. I said, okay. Then I asked, well, where's the bulk of everyone's assets? They all say in their retirement accounts. But then they still don't get it. They're like, no, my Social Security's $30,000. I'm making $100,000 today. So I will be in a lower tax bracket, and I don't even think Social Security's taxed. So what are you talking about? I go, well, you want to make $100,000 still, correct? Yes. You got $30,000 of Social Security income. Where's the other $70,000 going to come from?
Yeah, you want to spend $100,000.
You want to spend $100,000?
You just told me, yeah.
Where's it going to come from? Well, no, it's going to come from my retirement accounts. Okay, well, those retirement accounts are taxed like your paycheck. So if you're still creating $100,000 of income, and most of it is coming from your retirement account, how are you going to be in a lower tax bracket?
Yeah.
And then the light potentially kicks on.
Yeah, and then they start listening to you.
Yeah, oh, wow, you're right. Now, because I think for years and years and years and years, it's always been, hey, you will be in a lower tax bracket in retirement. And that is absolutely true for probably the majority of Americans.
Right.
But for our listeners, it's probably the opposite.
Yeah, because you've saved.
You save money.
And Joe, I mean, it's really about sort of creating an income stream. And if you think about it, what Joe just said is right. If you want to have the same lifestyle and your money is all in retirement accounts and you've got Social Security, maybe you got a pension, cool, good for you. All that shortfall has to come from your IRAs and your 401ks. You're in the same bracket that you were. In some cases, you're in higher brackets because your required minimum distribution at 70.5 forces you to take more out of your IRAs than you even want to. We see that all the time. And I guess the key really is the taxes don't stop when your paycheck does. In fact, tapping your retirement nest egg comes with all sorts of new rules and opportunities. Instead of contributing to tax-deferred plans that reduce your taxes, you start tapping those savings for income and paying taxes at your regular rates, unless you're tapping into a Roth IRA, which we'll get into in a bit. So as you near retirement, tax planning becomes more important than ever, but you must use a forward-thinking tax strategy because you have more control over paying taxes in retirement than you think, more so than any other time in your life.
All right, we got to take a break. Go to purefinancial.com. We'll be back in just a second. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth.
This is Your Money, Your Wealth on Talk Radio 760 KFMB.
Hey, welcome back to the program. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. My name's Joe Anderson. I'm a certified financial planner with Big Al Copine. He's a CPA. Go to our website at purefinancial.com. Get a lot more information. We have a education center there. Great place to get some information. There's probably 350 videos, short little clips on questions that you've asked us in the past. And so we do like these video blogs. Al and I also do a television program, Your Money, Your Wealth. And you can see our television show on there, too, if you want, at purefinancial.com. Go to our iTunes. iTunes is always a good place. You want the podcast or whatever. This is a 2-hour show, but we cut the podcast down. I think it's only like 40-some-odd minutes or something like that. So
We took the best because there's a lot of fat in our shows.
yeah. So, no, if we wanted the best, it would be like a 7-minute show out of 2 hours.
We just took out the worst.
Yeah, right.
Got it.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. Oh, boy. Couple of things. Let me go through some mistakes
Okay.
that I see often when it comes to retirement plans and planning is that a lot of you assume you can't have an IRA because you have a 401k plan or a similar plan. That is absolutely not the case. You can have both plans. You can have a 401k and an IRA. It never fails. It's like, well, no, I can't invest in an IRA or I can't invest in the Roth because I have a 401k through my employer. No, they're two separate things. So if you have a 401k plan, you can fully contribute that plan. That's $18,000. If you're over 50, $24,000. And if you also want to contribute to an IRA, you can do so as well. $5,500 in an IRA. If you're over 50, it's $65,000. But there's some caveats with the IRA if you want to go Roth or if you want to take the deduction.
Yeah, there are. And so to take a deduction, your income has to be low enough if you're in an employee-sponsored plan like a 401k. And those income amounts are a little over $70,000 for federal and about $100,000 for married. That's if you want to fully deduct your IRA.
70 for single.
Yeah, 70 for single. Yeah, $100,000 for married. But many of you probably should be looking at a Roth contribution, and those limits are much more generous. So if your income is, let's see, once it gets above 133,000,
131.
I think it's 133
Well, what year are you talking about?
this year.
Well, it's 2015 still. We can still contribute to
Well,
it.
that's true.
Right?
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
So we get...
I stand corrected.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. We can still do an IRA or Roth contribution for 2015 all the way to April 15th of 2016.
Yeah, so you got about a month and a half. If you haven't made a Roth IRA contribution for last year, I would encourage you to do so. A couple of reasons why, and I'm sorry to cut you out because I think the 5-year clock is important to distinguish here.
Yeah, good point.
Because in Roth IRAs, there's a 5-year clock, it's called. And so for you to get earnings out of the Roth, all right, you got to be over 59 and a half for the earnings, or 5 years, whichever's longer. So if you're in your 50s or 60s and you've never started a Roth IRA, all right, so let's say I'm 62 years old and I put money into a Roth IRA this year for 2016, okay? All right, well, 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, I got to wait till 2021 to get the earnings out of the Roth IRA, right?
Correct.
I don't necessarily want to wait that long, okay? So if I make a 2015 contribution, then I can wait till 2020 if you've never made a Roth contribution. So the 5-year clock starts with the first dollar that hits the first Roth. So let's say if you wait until April 14th of 2016 to make a Roth IRA contribution for 2015, your 5-year clock starts Jan 1 of 2015.
Yeah, back to the beginning of that fiscal year, or
Right.
calendar year. Yeah.
So you can cut a year off your 5-year clock if you contribute to a Roth. And you don't have to put a lot of money in it. You could put like $5. I mean, depending on the custodian, $100. Right? Put that in the Roth. Make sure that you get this thing done.
Right, and that's a very good point. And I think that the biggest point is that you can do these IRA contributions and or Roth contributions in addition to your 401k, in addition to your 403b or 457 plan, whatever it may be. And that's a big deal, because if you're putting in $5,500 each and every year and you start that at age 30, I mean, that is going to be a huge sum of money at your retirement, and that's over and above your 401ks and 403bs.
Yeah, but a lot of our listeners are not 30. They're 50 and 60 and 70.
Sure. But
right?
if you start at 50, you're in a lot better shape
Right.
now.
If you start
than,
at 60, you're in a better. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, every year puts you in better shape, and that's the point. You know, another thing, Joe, is that some people don't do these contributions because they're not tax deductible. And the thing is, the Roth IRA, we've just talked about this. If you're trying to spend the same amount in retirement that you're making and spending right now, and all your money is in retirement accounts, you're going to be in the same bracket. And furthermore, there's going to be some years where you want to spend more. In fact, most folks want to travel more in those first few years. All of a sudden, they're going to be in a higher tax bracket. Wouldn't it be great if some of your money was at least in a Roth IRA, so that when you do need to spend more, you pull it out of the Roth so you don't go into higher brackets? But you want to start doing those Roth contributions ongoing right now.
So here's another thing, too, is that, all right, maybe you don't qualify for a Roth. So you're like, all right, well, I'm not going to put any money into an IRA. Anyone can contribute to a standard individual retirement account as long as you're under 70 and a half and you have earned income.
Correct.
So you need wages, self-employment income. You know, you have to pay FICA tax on the income for you to qualify to make a contribution to any IRA. Okay. Now, let's say I make $200,000 a year and I don't qualify to do a Roth IRA, but I could still do an IRA contribution as long as I'm under 70 and a half. But if I do that IRA contribution, I don't get a tax deduction, right? So it's an after-tax contribution inside the IRA. So a lot of times people say, well, I don't want to do that. Well, you might want to consider that, because what you could do is that you could then make that IRA contribution, right? You don't take the tax deductions after tax, and then you could convert that IRA into a Roth. Because you got to realize, where do you want your money? Because it could be in 3 different pools. It could be in a tax-deferred pool that would be taxed at ordinary income coming out. It could be just in a brokerage account that you're subject to capital gains tax on any dividend or earnings or growth of that portfolio does. Or it could be in a tax-free account. So all your dividends, interest, growth of the account will forever grow tax-free. So think about that for a second. I think most of you would say, yeah, I think more money in a tax-free environment would be ideal. If I can invest in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real estate in an environment that I would never have to pay tax on any of that growth, that would be ideal. So maximizing that account is key to have the best chance to pay the lowest tax in retirement, right? And so an after-tax IRA contribution then could right away potentially be turned into a tax-free account, because there is no income limitations by doing a conversion, by taking the IRA that you just put the $5,500 in, didn't take the tax deduction. It has tax basis. You could just roll that into a Roth, and now that $5,500 will never be taxed. There's pro rata rules, there's aggregation rules, and everything else to go along with that. But just don't be short-sighted and say, hey, because I don't get a deduction, I'm not going to take it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And what we're talking about is a backdoor Roth. And by the way, this has been in President Obama's budget proposal for the last 3 years in a row to get rid of this. It's a way for you to do a Roth contribution, even if your income is high, if you're over the limits. And Joe, I would say this, to me, it's all about gaining control over your situation. And taxes are something that you have control over, but a lot of people don't realize that. But it's not true.
All right, we got to go. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. We'll be back in just a second.